Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, it's Wingy here and welcome to a brand new video. So I've been rewatching a few superhero movies lately and I just thought there's some out there that really just don't get the love that they deserve. I mean, obviously, we're living in a world now where Marvel movies and DC movies, they're out pretty much every week. Well, no, not obviously every single week, but fairly frequently. You get the idea. So within the midst of all these amazing superhero movies and some really terrible ones at the same time, there are some that I feel go really underappreciated, and I just want to shed light on three that I personally feel are actually quite good but just don't get the props that they deserve. As always, this is opinion based and just my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree, I couldn't give a shit and you shouldn't give a shit what I think either. You hate or love any of these movies? You do it. So, going into the first film that I want to talk about, The Dark Knight Rises. Now, this movie was always going to be scrutinised. The Dark Knight, to me at least, is the greatest superhero movie ever made. And I know whilst not everyone shares that same opinion as me, most people can admit, yeah, it's pretty much up there. So the sequel to that film, realistically, was never going to live up to the hype. And while yes, The Dark Knight Rises definitely does have its issues, which I'll talk about in a bit, I think it's a really underrated movie and people don't appreciate it. Now, the reason why I feel that this in particular is underrated is because there's so much good stuff in this movie, but I just feel like people overlook it because of certain things like the plot holes or Bane's voice. Which, to be fair, I don't even mind. I actually quite like Bane's voice in this, and Tom Hardy in general. This movie really isn't what most people would expect from a Batman movie, because it isn't a Batman movie, it's a Bruce Wayne movie. And I like the fact that we've seen Bruce Wayne go from this insecure kid who's lost his parents to becoming the Batman, the hero that Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs. And then in this movie, he has to go from a personal journey, like literally, The Dark Knight Rises is so bold in what it does because Batman loses. Not many superhero movies do that. Literally, the film starts out pretty much, well, the first third, with Batman coming out of retirement, and then when he does, he gets his arse handed to him by the villain. Batman literally has to take Gotham back from Bane. And then we watch Bruce Wayne literally start all over again. He has to learn over again who he is and what Batman truly is. The Dark Knight trilogy as a whole really does strip things back, but I think no more so than in The Dark Knight Rises. We really get a glimpse as to who Bruce Wayne truly is. And plus, that opening shot with the plane, freaking awesome. And yes, it does definitely have its issues, but I think as part of the Dark Knight trilogy, it isn't the worst one. And the thing is, I don't know which the worst one is because I love them all. The Dark Knight is definitely the best one for me, but the others, I mean, they're all worthy of each other, if that makes sense. But I've seen people give this like dog shit reviews, and I just think, nah. Come on, it's not even the worst Batman movie. Next, I want to talk about a movie that has been pretty much forgotten, The Wolverine. Now, the problem with The Wolverine is that nobody really seems to be interested in it because it was a solo Wolverine movie, which, you know, sounds pretty cool. However, when you remember, there was another one. I think X-Men Origins being as bad as it was, nobody was really interested in another solo Wolverine movie. But then obviously we get Logan recently and that was just... whew. But The Wolverine is a really solid movie. Similar to The Dark Knight Rises, it explores Wolverine as a character, and it puts him in a really interesting situation. What would Wolverine actually be like if he didn't have his healing factor anymore? Let's be honest here, because Wolverine and Deadpool and other characters like that, because they do have that healing factor, they go into certain situations pretty much fearless because they know they're going to get out of it. And it's also set somewhere pretty cool, in Japan. That's quite refreshing for me. Usually superhero movies are set in New York or just some part of America. But I really wish that superhero movies would venture out more, and Wolverine does this. Is it a perfect movie? Absolutely not. But in my humble opinion, it is one of the more solid entries into the X-Men universe. The only problem that I have with it is the villain. The villain really is lackluster. It's just some big robo guy. But the rest of this movie I find really enjoyable, and it has some really sweet action sequences, particularly the one on the train. That has always been a standout moment for me in any of these superhero movies. And yet, whilst it's not the best movie ever, it's still a fun ride whilst you're watching it. I mean, it couldn't have been worse than X-Men Origins, let's be honest. And finally, the last movie that I want to talk about is Man of Steel. Now, this movie gets so much hate, and I do understand it, I really do. But here's the thing, the reason why people don't like this movie is pretty much the reasons exactly why I like it. But to give it some context, Superman for me was always a character that was a bit dull. Like, he was just good at everything. You know, he's got super strength, he can fly, he's got laser vision, frost breath, x-ray vision, he can time travel for some fucking reason. In the older Superman movies anyway. But this, we see a different version of Superman. I'm sensing a theme here. But no, we are seeing a version of Superman that isn't used to being who he is. In the flashback sequences especially, you see him struggling like with his vision, adjusting to Earth's atmosphere, and you see him get things wrong, like the destruction of Metropolis, something that people bitch about, I think is great. Of course, no, the Superman that we know and love that's established in the comics, he wouldn't be that reckless and destroy a city. But this one, he's inexperienced, he doesn't know any better, he's just trying to do the good thing, and he just wants to stop the bad guy and make sure that the people of Metropolis don't get into any harm. Well, I mean, they do. That's why we have Batman v Superman, which is also underrated, I think. But I know that people say that, well, he's not this hopeful and optimistic character. And I think, well, yeah, he wouldn't be. He hasn't done anything yet. He's not proven himself yet. He might be some quiet, shy and humble dude. Or brooding, however you want to word it. But I enjoy seeing that side to Superman. And I especially like the bit with Zod at the end where he snaps his neck. I know some people take issue and say, well, Superman wouldn't do that. But I like the fact that we see Superman in a difficult situation where nothing he does is really the right thing to do. You really see him grow from that. And that scream that he lets out, it makes total sense. Put yourself in Superman's shoes. What do? Do you not snap his neck and then let the family die? It was a really great character moment for him. Henry Cavill is seriously underrated as an actor as well. I really love him as Superman. And sure, there are parts of this movie that aren't necessarily the best. I think the reason for him holding back on his powers or his true identity for a long time with his father's death, that could have been handled better. But I enjoy the flashbacks, I enjoy the action, I enjoy the performances. And I especially love seeing a character that I thought was quite dull and one-dimensional actually have a bit of depth for a change. At least in the materials that I've read in the past, because I know there's probably going to be someone in the comments saying, well, actually in issue 451 of this universe, he was actually quite fascinating. Yeah, well, for me, I haven't read all the Superman comics, so this is sort of the only point where I can say, yes, I found him interesting in this. He's flawed. That's interesting. And also, I love the scene where he starts to fly for the first time. That is hopeful and optimistic Superman. The way he just lets out that boyish scream and he's like, woohoo! Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. Again, like the rest of the entries on this list, it's not necessarily the best movie ever, but it's solid enough and it's good enough, and again, it just doesn't get the praise that it deserves. I mean, it's better than Suicide Squad. But anyway, they are just 3 of my personal choices. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these 3 movies? Love them, hate them, think they're overrated, underrated, whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more, and if you want to follow me on any of my social medias or support me on Patreon, then the links are in the description below and feel free to do so. But if you do any of those things, then I would love you forever. But until next time guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye. I should really start filming the video now, shouldn't I?